I thought I knew my family until I found the empty college fund statement in my mother's purse. $23,000. Gone. The same amount my brother Marcus needed for bail after his third felony arrest. My parents had stolen my future to save their precious golden child again. Standing in our kitchen that Tuesday morning, holding the evidence of their ultimate betrayal, I realized everything I believed about family loyalty was a lie. They chose him over me. Always him, but they had no idea what storm was coming. Hey everyone, before we dive into this family revenge story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If you've ever felt like the forgotten child in your family, hit that like button. Trust me, you'll want to see how this story of family justice unfolds. Don't forget to subscribe because what happens next will blow your mind. The morning that changed everything started like any other Tuesday in my senior year. I was 18, 3 months away from graduation, and desperately trying to finalize my college applications. Stanford had been my dream since I was 12, and my parents had always promised my college fund would cover it. "Education is everything, Serafina," my mother would say. "We've been saving since you were born." That Tuesday, I needed my Social Security card for a scholarship application. Mom was at work, but she always kept important documents in her purse. I had permission to grab it. This was not snooping. At least, not initially. The bank statement fell out when I was looking for the card. At first, I thought it was just another bill. Then I saw the header, Serafina College Education Fund. My heart started racing as I scanned the numbers. The account that should have held $23,000 showed a balance of $12.67. I stared at the paper, my hands trembling. This had to be a mistake. Maybe there was another account. Maybe the money had been moved for better interest rates. There had to be an explanation that did not involve the complete destruction of my future. But as I kept reading, the truth became undeniable. The withdrawal date was March 15th, 3 weeks ago. The exact same day Marcus had called from county jail begging for bail money after his latest arrest. Assault charges, this time his third felony. I remembered that phone call because I had been studying for my SATs when Dad answered, his voice immediately shifting to that stressed whisper he used whenever Marcus was in trouble. "We'll figure something out, son," he had said. "Family sticks together." I had assumed they meant a loan, maybe borrowing against the house. Never in my wildest nightmares did I imagine they would steal from my future to save his. The evidence was right there in black and white. $22,987.33. Withdrawn in one lump sum. My entire college fund accumulated through years of my parents' sacrifices. Birthday money from grandparents and my own part-time job contributions. All of it gone to bail out my criminal brother. I sat on the kitchen floor, still holding that statement as 17 years of memories suddenly made sense. Marcus getting the bigger bedroom when he turned 16, because boys need more space. My parents attending every single one of his football games, but missing my academic competitions because they had to work late. The way they always made excuses for him. His drinking was just teenage rebellion, his stealing was just acting out his arrests were just bad luck, or being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Meanwhile, I had been the perfect daughter. Straight A's since kindergarten. Never missed curfew. Never got in trouble. I worked part-time at the local bookstore to help with family expenses, while Marcus had never held a job in his life. I volunteered at the animal shelter, tutored kids for free, and had already been accepted to 3 colleges with partial scholarships. But apparently none of that mattered when their precious golden boy needed saving. The worst part was not just the money, it was the lying. For 3 weeks, my parents had looked me in the eye every day, knowing they had destroyed my future, and said nothing. Just last week, Mom had asked how my scholarship applications were going, acting like she cared about my education, while knowing she had already sabotaged it. I heard Dad's car in the driveway and quickly put the statement back in Mom's purse, but I kept a photo on my phone. When he walked in, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my homework spread out just like always. The perfect studious daughter. "How was school, sweetheart?" he asked, kissing the top of my head. like he had not just committed the ultimate parental betrayal. "Fine," I managed my voice somehow steady. "Just working on scholarship essays." He winced slightly. So briefly I almost missed it. But I caught it. The guilt was there buried under his practiced normalcy. "That's my girl. Always working hard." He opened the refrigerator back to me and I could see the tension in his shoulders. "Your mother will be home late tonight. Another double shift at the hospital." More lies. Mom was probably working extra shifts to replace the money they had stolen from me, but it was too little too late. College acceptance letters were already arriving. Decision deadlines were approaching. Without that fund, my dreams of Stanford were dead, and they knew it. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my phone in my hand with that damning bank statement photo. $23,000. My entire future. Gone. For Marcus, who would probably be back in jail within 6 months anyway, based on his track record. I thought about confronting them, but what would be the point? The money was gone. Marcus was out of jail. The damage was done. Besides, I knew exactly how that conversation would go. They would cry, apologize, promise to pay me back somehow. Dad would give me that disappointed look and talk about family loyalty. Mom would guilt-trip me about Marcus's struggles and how I needed to be more understanding. But I was done being understanding. I was done being the easy child, the one who never caused problems, the one whose needs always came second. I was done being taken for granted while my criminal brother got priority treatment. Instead of confronting them, I started planning. I had 3 months until graduation, and then I was 18. Legally an adult. I had been saving money from my bookstore job for college expenses, and I had relatives across the country who barely knew my family's dysfunction. My great-aunt Vivian lived in Portland, Oregon. She was my grandmother's sister, successful and independent, who had always sent thoughtful birthday cards with $20 bills. We had only met a few times, but she had always seemed genuinely interested in my academic achievements. More importantly, she had no love for my parents after they had skipped my grandmother's funeral 5 years ago because Marcus had a court date that same week. If I was going to disappear, Portland seemed like the perfect place to start over. Far enough away that I would not accidentally run into anyone from home, but still in the United States where my citizenship would not be an issue. The plan started forming in my mind as I finally drifted off to sleep. 3 more months of pretending everything was normal. 3 more months of being the perfect daughter while secretly preparing for my escape. And then on graduation day, I would vanish without a trace, leaving my parents to wonder what happened to their convenient, reliable daughter, who they had always taken for granted. The next 3 months became a masterclass in deception. Every morning I woke up and played the role of devoted daughter while secretly orchestrating my escape. The hardest part was not the lying. It was watching my parents continue their charade, asking about my college plans while knowing they had destroyed them. During spring break, I told my parents I was going on a school trip to Seattle with my AP history class. Instead, I took a Greyhound bus to Portland with $800 from my savings account. The trip was not about sightseeing. It was reconnaissance. Aunt Vivian lived in a beautiful craftsman house in the Hawthorne district, surrounded by coffee shops and bookstores. When I knocked on her door that rainy Tuesday morning, she looked exactly like the photos my grandmother had kept. Silver hair in an elegant bob, sharp green eyes, and an artist's paint-stained fingers. "Serafina?" She seemed genuinely surprised but not displeased. "What are you doing in Portland, honey?" I had rehearsed this moment dozens of times. I got into Portland State University and wanted to see the city before making my final decision. The lie came easily because it was partially true. I had applied to Portland State as a safety school and had been accepted with a partial scholarship. How wonderful. Come in, come in. I was just making tea. Her house was everything my family home was not. Peaceful, organized, filled with books and original artwork. We spent the afternoon talking about everything except my parents. She asked thoughtful questions about my academic interests, my future plans, my dreams. It had been so long since an adult had shown genuine interest in me as a person, rather than as Marcus's sister or the easy child. "You know," she said as we finished our second pot of tea, "your grandmother always said you were special. She worried about you growing up in that house." "What do you mean?" Vivian's expression grew serious. "Your grandmother saw how differently your parents treated you and Marcus. She used to call me upset about it. She wanted to intervene, but your parents made it clear she was not welcome to interfere." This was news to me. I did not know that. "There is a lot you probably do not know, sweetheart. Your parents have always been complicated. They mean well, but they have terrible priorities." Before I left that evening, Vivian had offered me something I had not dared hope for. A place to stay if I ever needed it, no questions asked. "You are welcome here any time, Serafina. I mean that." The bus ride home gave me 6 hours to finalize my plan. I would graduate, skip the family celebration dinner they were undoubtedly planning, and catch the evening bus back to Portland. I had already researched community colleges where I could start working toward my degree while living with Aunt Vivian. Back home, I threw myself into my final semester with renewed focus. I maintained my perfect GPA, continued working at the bookstore, and saved every penny I could. My manager, Mrs. Rodriguez, noticed my increased dedication. "Planning something special after graduation?" she asked one afternoon as I organized inventory with unusual enthusiasm. "You could say that." I had grown fond of Mrs. Rodriguez over the past 2 years. She was one of the few adults in my life who treated me with consistent respect. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Would you be willing to write me a character reference letter?" "Of course, honey. For college applications." "Something like that." She studied my face with the intuition of someone who had raised 4 children. "Are you okay, Serafina? You seem different lately. More determined." "I am just ready for the next chapter of my life." The hardest part of my deception was dealing with college acceptance letters. Stanford had accepted me with a partial scholarship that would have been manageable with my college fund. Without it, the remaining cost was impossible. I had to decline their offer, citing changed financial circumstances. The rejection email was one of the most difficult things I had ever written. Instead, I accepted Portland State's offer and deferred my enrollment by 1 semester, citing personal reasons. This would give me time to establish residency in Oregon and qualify for in-state tuition rates. My parents remained oblivious to my planning. Dad continued his nightly ritual of asking about homework and college preparations. Mom still made my favorite breakfast every Sunday morning. They were trying so hard to maintain normalcy that they missed every sign of my emotional withdrawal. Meanwhile, Marcus was back to his usual routine of disappearing for days at a time and coming home drunk or high. My parents continued making excuses for him, but I could see the strain on their faces. The bail money had not fixed anything. It had just delayed the inevitable next crisis. 2 weeks before graduation, I overheard a phone conversation that confirmed my worst suspicions about my family's dysfunction. "No, Marcus, we cannot bail you out again," Dad was saying in his stressed whisper voice. "We already used Serafina's college money last time. There is nothing left." "What do you mean you cannot?" "I am your son. Family is supposed to stick together. We sold everything we could. The car, some of your mother's jewelry. We even borrowed against the house. We cannot keep doing this. Well, maybe Princess Perfect can skip college for a year and get a job. She is smart enough. She will figure something out." My blood turned to ice. Not only did Marcus know they had stolen my college fund, but he expected me to sacrifice even more for his mistakes. And from Dad's silence, he was actually considering it. That conversation eliminated any lingering guilt I felt about my escape plan. They had not just betrayed my trust. They were actively planning to sacrifice my future indefinitely to enable Marcus's criminal lifestyle. From that moment, my emotional detachment became complete. I stopped caring about their approval or their feelings. They had made their choice repeatedly, and now I was making mine. I started leaving subtle clues about my mental state, knowing they were too self-absorbed to notice. I stopped engaging in family conversations beyond basic pleasantries. I declined invitations to watch movies or go shopping with mom. When they asked about college plans, I gave vague, non-committal answers. Serafina seems distant lately, I heard mom tell dad one evening. She is probably just stressed about graduation. You know how she gets when she is focused on something important. If they had paid attention to me for even 5 minutes over the past 18 years, they would have known that I never got distant when stressed. I got more talkative and organized. But they did not know me at all. They knew the convenient version of me they had created in their minds, the low-maintenance daughter who never caused problems and always understood when Marcus needed to come first. 3 days before graduation, I mailed a letter to Aunt Vivian confirming my arrival date and thanking her for her generosity. I also opened a new bank account in Portland online, using her address, and had my final paycheck from the bookstore direct deposited there. Everything was ready. In 72 hours, I would walk across that graduation stage, accept my diploma, and then vanish from their lives completely. No dramatic confrontation, no angry speeches, no opportunity for them to manipulate me into staying. Just like my college fund, I would simply be gone one day, leaving them to wonder what happened and why. Graduation day arrived with the kind of perfect spring weather that makes everything feel like a new beginning. I woke up early, made my bed with military precision, and packed the single duffel bag I would be taking to Portland. Everything I truly cared about fit into that bag. Important documents, a few precious books, photos of my grandmother, and the $8,000 I had managed to save over 2 years of working. The rest of my belongings would stay behind as props in the elaborate performance I was about to give my family. Big day, sweetheart. Mom burst into my room with her camera already dressed in the navy blue dress she wore to special occasions. I cannot believe my baby is graduating as valedictorian. Co-valedictorian, I corrected automatically. Jake Morrison and I tied for first place. Still amazing. Your father is so proud he has been telling everyone at work. We should get going soon. I want good seats for photos. I looked around my childhood bedroom one last time. The walls covered with academic achievement certificates, the bookshelf overflowing with novels, the desk where I had spent countless hours studying while Marcus partied. In 6 hours, this would just be a guest room again. Mom, I said as she fussed with her camera settings, I love you. She stopped and looked at me with genuine surprise. We were not an affectionate family. Emotions were saved for crisis situations involving Marcus. I love you too, honey. More than you know. The irony was not lost on me. If she really loved me more than I knew, she would not have stolen my future for my criminal brother. The graduation ceremony was held in the high school gymnasium decorated with our school colors and filled with proud families. As I sat with my fellow graduates, I scanned the crowd and found my parents in the 3rd row. Dad had his phone out, ready to record my speech while Mom held a bouquet of white roses, my favorite flowers. They looked so normal, so proud, so completely unaware that their daughter was about to disappear forever. When my name was called for the valedictorian speech, I walked to the podium with my heart hammering. I had rewritten this speech 6 times, carefully crafting words that would serve as both inspiration for my classmates and a hidden goodbye to my family. Fellow graduates, families, and faculty. I began my voice surprisingly steady. Today marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. We have all learned valuable lessons during our time here. Lessons about friendship, perseverance, and the importance of staying true to our values even when others disappoint us. In the audience, I saw my parents beaming with pride, completely missing the personal meaning behind my words. Some of us will follow expected paths while others will forge new trails entirely. Some will stay close to home while others will travel far to find where they truly belong. What matters is not where we go, but that we remain authentic to ourselves and never settle for less than we deserve. I paused, looking directly at my parents for what I knew would be the last time. To our families, thank you for the lessons you taught us, even the difficult ones. Sometimes the greatest gift parents can give their children is the strength to stand on their own, even when that means letting go completely. Independence is not abandonment. It is growth. The audience applauded, but I could see confusion flickering across my mother's face. She was smart enough to recognize that something in my speech felt like goodbye, but not perceptive enough to understand why. After the ceremony, my family gathered for the traditional photo session. Marcus had actually shown up, probably because Mom had threatened him with consequences. He stood between our parents wearing a wrinkled button-down shirt, clearly hungover but trying to look presentable. "Proud of you, sis," he said with what might have been genuine emotion. "You always were the smart one in the family." "Thank you, Marcus." I meant it. Despite everything, I did not hate my brother. I pitied him. He was a 24-year-old man who had never learned to take responsibility for his actions because my parents had spent his entire life protecting him from consequences. "Okay, family photo," Mom announced, positioning us in front of the gymnasium entrance. "This is going on the mantle next to Marcus's football pictures." Of course it was. Even on my graduation day, she had to mention Marcus's high school glory days. We took dozens of photos. Me with my diploma, me with my parents, me with my whole family. In every single picture, I smiled genuinely because I knew something they did not. I was already free. "Serafina, honey, we should head to dinner soon," Dad said after the photo session. I made reservations at Romano's for 5:30. Romano's was my favorite Italian restaurant, the place they took me for special occasions. The gesture would have been touching if I did not know they were only splurging because they felt guilty about destroying my future. "Actually, I need to stop by the school first," I said. "I left something in my locker and they are cleaning them out on Monday." "Oh, we can wait," Mom said. "Or we could come with you." "No, it will just take a few minutes. Why do not you go ahead and get our table? I will meet you there." "Are you sure we do not mind waiting?" "I am sure. I will see you in 20 minutes. I hugged each of them goodbye, putting extra emotion into each embrace because I wanted them to remember this moment. When they thought about me in the years to come, I wanted them to remember that their last interaction with their daughter was love, not anger. "I will see you soon," I whispered to Mom as she held me tight. "Of course you will, sweetheart. Tonight is just the beginning of all your wonderful adventures." She had no idea how right she was. Instead of going to the school, I walked 4 blocks to the Greyhound station where my bus to Portland was scheduled to depart at 6:15. I had timed everything perfectly. My family would be at Romano's by the time my bus left town. They would probably wait for an hour before calling my phone, which I planned to turn off the moment I boarded. At the station, I called Mrs. Rodriguez from the bookstore. "Serafina, how was graduation?" "Perfect, actually. Mrs. Rodriguez, I wanted to call and say goodbye. I am leaving town tonight." "Oh, honey, for college, I thought you were staying local." "Something like that. I just wanted to thank you for everything. You were always so kind to me, and it meant more than you know." There was a pause. "Are you okay, sweetheart? You sound different." "I am better than okay. I am finally free." Free from what? From being taken for granted. From being the easy child who never gets put first. From watching my parents enable my brother's criminal behavior while expecting me to just smile and understand. Another pause. "Serafina, do your parents know you are leaving?" "They will figure it out soon enough." "Honey, maybe you should think about this. Running away never solves anything." "I am not running away, Mrs. Rodriguez. I am 18 years old. I am a legal adult, and I am making a choice to build a life where I am valued and respected. There is a difference." "Where will you go?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere I can start over. I have family who actually cares about me." The bus boarding announcement echoed through the station. "Portland, Oregon, departing from Gate 3. "I have to go, Mrs. Rodriguez. Thank you for being one of the few adults who ever really saw me." "Serafina, wait. Take care of yourself. I hung up and turned off my phone, dropping it into a trash can near the gate. I had already memorized Aunt Vivian's phone number and address. The phone was just another tie to a life I was leaving behind. As I boarded the bus and found my seat, I felt something I had not experienced in years. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. No more walking on eggshells around Marcus's moods. No more watching my parents choose him over me repeatedly. No more being the forgotten child in my own family. The bus pulled away from the station just as the sun was setting, and I watched my hometown disappear through the rear window. Somewhere across town, my parents were probably still waiting at Romano's, checking their watches and wondering where their reliable daughter could be. They were about to learn that reliable and invisible were not the same thing, and that taking someone for granted was a luxury they could no longer afford. 10 years. 10 years of building a life in Portland while my family lived with the consequences of their choices. I graduated from Portland State with honors, earned a master's degree in social work, and built a career helping at-risk youth navigate the justice system. Aunt Vivian became the mother figure I had always needed, supporting my dreams without conditions or favoritism. I never contacted my parents during those 10 years, but I kept tabs on them through social media and mutual acquaintances. The updates painted a predictable picture. Marcus continued his cycle of arrests, jail time, and temporary releases. My parents continued enabling him, draining their retirement savings, and eventually losing their house to pay for his legal fees. What I had not expected was the phone call I received on a Tuesday morning in October. "Is this Serafina Walsh?" The voice was professional but tired. "Yes, this is she. This is Detective Sarah Chen with the Springfield Police Department. I am calling about your brother, Marcus Walsh." I had legally changed my last name to Walsh, Aunt Vivian's maiden name. 5 years earlier, another step in creating my new identity. "What has he done now?" I asked, though part of me dreaded the answer. "He has been arrested on federal charges, wire fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. The FBI has been investigating him for 2 years as part of a larger organized crime operation." My blood ran cold. Marcus's petty crimes had apparently escalated far beyond what anyone in our family realized. "The reason I am calling," Detective Chen continued, "is that your parents are also being investigated. Bank records show they have been receiving and transferring large sums of money that appear connected to Marcus's criminal activities." "That is impossible. My parents are not criminals." "They may not have known the money was illegal, but ignorance is not always a defense. The FBI believes Marcus has been using your family's legitimate bank accounts to launder money from drug sales and fraud schemes. Your parents face potential charges as accessories." The conversation lasted 30 more minutes, during which Detective Chen explained that the FBI had seized all of my family's remaining assets and that my parents were facing the possibility of federal prison time. She wanted to know if I had any information about Marcus's activities or my parents' financial situation. "I have not spoken to my family in 10 years, I told her honestly. 10 years. "May I ask why?" I found myself telling this stranger the story of my stolen college fund and my decision to disappear. Detective Chen listened without judgment, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "So you had no knowledge of any criminal activity beyond Marcus's previous arrests for assault and theft?" "None whatsoever. But I am not surprised that my parents got pulled into his mess. They never could tell him no." After hanging up, I sat in my Portland apartment staring out at the rain-soaked streets, processing this new information. My parents, who had sacrificed my future to enable Marcus's criminal behavior, were now facing prison because that same criminal behavior had expanded beyond their control or understanding. The irony was almost too much to bear. 3 days later, another call came, this time from my mother. "Serafina. Oh my God, is this really you?" Her voice was older, more fragile than I remembered. 10 years of stress and Marcus's escalating problems had clearly taken their toll. "Hello, Mom." "Baby, we need your help. We need your help so badly." Of course they did. After 10 years of silence, they were only calling because they needed something. I heard about the arrests. It is all a mistake. We did not know Marcus was doing anything illegal. He told us he was working in sales, making good money finally. When he asked us to help him with some banking because his credit was bad, we thought we were helping him get his life together. You thought a man with 3 felony convictions suddenly became a legitimate businessman. He seemed different. He was dressing better, talking about investments and business opportunities. Your father and I thought he had finally grown up. I closed my eyes. Even now, facing federal charges, my mother was making excuses for Marcus. "What do you want from me, Mom?" "We need a good lawyer. The court-appointed attorney says we might go to prison. We lost the house, the cars, everything. The FBI froze all our accounts. We are staying in a motel and we do not know what to do." "And you want me to what exactly?" "You always were so smart, so responsible. Maybe you could help us figure out how to prove we are innocent. Or maybe you could loan us money for a better lawyer." The request hung in the air like a toxic cloud. After stealing my college fund, destroying my trust, and spending 10 years without so much as a birthday card, she was asking me to save them from the consequences of their choices. "Mom, do you remember why I left?" "You left because you were 18 and wanted independence. We always understood that." "No, Mom. I left because you stole my college fund to bail out Marcus. Again." Silence. "I left because you chose your criminal son over your honor student daughter. Every single time." "Serafina, that is not. We always loved you equally. You emptied my college account without telling me. I found the bank statement by accident. $23,000. My entire future. Gone to pay Marcus's bail for assault charges. We were going to pay you back. With what money, Mom? You had already mortgaged the house twice to cover his previous legal fees. You never had any intention of paying me back because you never had the means to do it." I could hear her crying now, but I felt no sympathy. 10 years of therapy had taught me to recognize manipulation tactics, and my mother's tears were textbook emotional blackmail. "We made mistakes, baby. We know that now. But we need you. Marcus is looking at 20 years in federal prison. Your father might get 10 years just for letting Marcus use our bank account. I could get 5 years. We are 63 years old. This could destroy us." Where was this family loyalty when I needed you to choose me just once? Where was this desperate phone call when I was 17 and had to give up my Stanford acceptance because you stole my future? We thought you would understand. You always understood when Marcus needed help. I understood because I was a child who wanted her parents' love. But I am not a child anymore, and I do not need your love anymore either. Another long silence. "So you are going to let us go to prison? Your own parents. I am going to let you face the consequences of your choices just like you let me face the consequences of yours when you destroyed my college plans." "Serafina, please. We are family." "No, Mom. Family does not steal from each other. Family does not sacrifice one child's future to enable another child's criminal behavior. Family does not ignore their daughter for 10 years until they need something from her." "But we love you." "If you loved me, you would have called on my birthday. If you loved me, you would have tried to find me and apologize. If you loved me, you never would have stolen my college fund in the first place." I paused, letting the weight of 10 years of abandonment settle between us. "You made your choice a long time ago, Mom. Marcus was always your priority. Now you get to live with what that choice cost you." I hung up on my mother that day, but her call had opened a floodgate I had not expected. Over the next few weeks, I found myself obsessively following the news coverage of Marcus's case and researching the legal proceedings against my parents. The details that emerged painted a picture even worse than I had imagined. Marcus had not just been selling drugs or running small-time fraud schemes. He had been part of a sophisticated operation that targeted elderly victims with investment scams, stealing their life savings and retirement funds. The FBI had traced over $2 million through various accounts, including the ones my parents had allowed him to use. My parents, it turned out, had been unknowingly helping to launder money stolen from people just like themselves. Older Americans who had worked their entire lives and trusted the wrong person with their financial security. The irony was devastating. My parents, who had robbed their own daughter's future to enable their son's criminal behavior, had become victims of that same criminal behavior. Marcus had been stealing from them too, using their legitimate banking relationships to hide his illegal income, while telling them he was finally becoming successful. Bank records showed that while my parents thought they were helping Marcus manage legitimate business income, he had been funneling drug money and fraud proceeds through their accounts for over 3 years. The money they thought he was making from sales was actually stolen from victims across 6 different states. Detective Chen called me again 2 weeks later with updates. "Your brother took a plea deal," she informed me. 25 years federal prison in exchange for cooperation in the larger investigation. And my parents? That is more complicated. The prosecutor believes they were genuinely unaware of the criminal nature of the money, but federal law makes it difficult to prosecute financial crimes based on intent. Ignorance is not always a viable defense. What does that mean for them? Their attorney is negotiating. Best case scenario, they get probation and restitution requirements. Worst case, they get 5 to 7 years each for money laundering. Restitution. They would be required to pay back a portion of the money that was laundered through their accounts. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. I thought about my parents, now 63, and essentially homeless, trying to pay back money to victims they had never met for crimes they claimed they did not know they were committing. "Detective Chen, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you believe they really did not know?" There was a pause. "Off the record, I think your mother suspected something was not right, but chose not to ask questions because she did not want to know the answers. Your father seems genuinely shocked by everything, but he admits he never questioned where Marcus suddenly got money to invest after years of being unemployed." So willful ignorance. That is my assessment, yes. They wanted to believe Marcus had changed because the alternative was admitting they had been enabling a criminal for decades. After that conversation, I made a decision that surprised even me. I called the federal prosecutor handling my parents' case and volunteered to testify about their history with Marcus, not to defend them, but to provide context about their pattern of enabling behavior. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jennifer Hayes, was very interested in my story. "You are telling me they emptied your college fund to bail him out just months before he started laundering money through their accounts?" "That is correct. They had a 20-year pattern of prioritizing his needs over everything else, including their other child's future and their own financial security." "And you have documentation of the college fund theft?" "I kept the bank statement. I also have records showing I had to decline my Stanford acceptance because of the missing funds." This establishes a pattern of poor judgment and Marcus manipulation that could actually help your parents' case. It shows they were long-term victims of his manipulation, not criminal conspirators. I had not expected that. I had called to ensure the truth was part of the official record, not to help my parents avoid consequences. "Ms. Hayes, I want to be clear about something. I am not trying to get my parents off the hook. I am trying to make sure the full picture of Marcus's impact on our family is part of the legal record." "I understand. But your testimony could be crucial in establishing that your parents were victims too, just like the people whose retirement money Marcus stole." The trial took place 6 months later. I flew back to my hometown for the first time in 10 years to testify. Walking through the airport where I had once caught rides home from school, driving past the high school where I graduated as co-valedictorian, seeing the neighborhoods where I had grown up, it all felt surreal. My parents looked older than their years when I saw them in the courthouse hallway. Dad had lost weight, and his hair had gone completely gray. Mom looked fragile and nervous, wearing a conservative dress I did not recognize. When they saw me, the shock on their faces was unmistakable. "Serafina?" Mom whispered as if she was not sure I was real. "Hello, Mom." "Dad." "You look successful," Dad said, taking in my professional suit and confident demeanor. "We saw in the newspapers that you became a social worker." "You have been following my life. We tried to find you," Mom said quietly. "We hired a private investigator after the first year, but you had changed your name and covered your tracks well." "You hired a private investigator." "We wanted to apologize. We wanted to explain. We wanted to tell you that we knew we made mistakes." I studied their faces looking for signs of manipulation or deception, but saw only genuine regret and exhaustion. "Why did you never try to contact Aunt Vivian? You knew we had a relationship." They exchanged a glance. "We called her once," Dad admitted. "About 3 years after you left. She told us you were doing well, and that if we really cared about you, we would leave you alone to build your new life. She said you had found peace," Mom added, "and that we had forfeited the right to disrupt that peace until we had something meaningful to offer besides apologies." Aunt Vivian had never told me about their call. She had protected my healing process without me even knowing it. "She was right," I said simply. "We know," Dad replied. "We have known for a long time that we lost the best thing in our lives when we lost you. But we also knew we did not deserve to get you back until we could prove we had learned from our mistakes." "And have you learned?" Mom's eyes filled with tears. "It took us 10 years and the possibility of prison to finally admit that we destroyed our family to enable Marcus's addiction and criminal behavior. We know we can never undo the damage we did to you, but we also know now that you were the only one of us who had the strength to break the cycle." For the first time in 10 years, my parents were telling me a truth I could actually believe. My testimony lasted 3 hours and covered 20 years of Marcus's manipulation and my parents' enabling behavior. I spoke about the stolen college fund, the pattern of prioritizing Marcus's immediate needs over long-term family stability, and the emotional cost of growing up as the easy child whose needs always came second. But I also testified about what I had observed during our brief reunion: 2 people who finally understood the consequences of their choices and were genuinely trying to take responsibility for their part in enabling a criminal. "Your Honor," I said during my final statement, "my parents made terrible decisions that harmed their family and indirectly harmed Marcus's victims. But I believe they were victims of my brother's manipulation too. They spent 24 years believing they were helping their son when they were actually enabling his development into a career criminal." The judge thanked me for my testimony, and I left the courthouse without speaking to my parents again. I had said what I came to say, and now the legal system would decide their fate. 3 weeks later, Detective Chen called with the verdict. "Your parents pled guilty to reduced charges and received probation with restitution requirements," she told me. "No prison time, but they have to pay back $87,000 to the victims over the next 10 years. And Marcus, 25 years federal prison just as negotiated. He will be eligible for parole in 15 years if he maintains good behavior." I felt an unexpected sense of closure. Justice had been served, but it was tempered justice that recognized the complexity of the situation. Marcus would face real consequences for his crimes, but my parents would have the opportunity to rebuild their lives and make amends. 2 months after the trial, I received a letter from my mother. Inside was a cashier's check for $23,000, the exact amount they had stolen from my college fund 10 years earlier. "Serafina, we know this money cannot undo the damage we caused or give you back the opportunities we took away. We know it comes 10 years too late and cannot repair the trust we broke. This money represents the first payment we received from selling everything we had left: our wedding rings, your grandmother's jewelry, your grandfather's tools, family heirlooms we should have sold before ever touching your college fund. We are not asking for forgiveness or contact. We are simply trying to pay back a debt that should never have existed. You deserved better parents, and we are sorry we could not be what you needed when you needed it most. We are proud of the woman you became despite our failures. We have followed your career from a distance and know you are helping children navigate the justice system. We think it is beautiful that you turned your pain into purpose. Please know that losing you was the greatest consequence we faced for our choices. Prison would have been easier than living 10 years knowing we destroyed our relationship with our daughter. We love you, and we are sorry. Mom and Dad. I stared at that check for a long time thinking about the 18-year-old girl who had found that devastating bank statement in her mother's purse. $23,000 had seemed like the end of the world then. Now, at 28 with a master's degree I had earned through my own determination and a career I loved, that money represented something different. It represented my parents finally choosing me, even if it was 10 years too late. I deposited the check and used the money to establish a scholarship fund at my old high school for students whose family circumstances made college financially impossible. The Serafina Walsh Educational Justice Fund would ensure that other children would not have their futures stolen to pay for family dysfunction. 6 months later, I received another unexpected call. Serafina, this is Jake Morrison. We were co-valedictorians together. Jake, how did you get my number? Your parents gave it to me. I hope that is okay. I am a journalist now, and I am writing a series about families affected by the opioid crisis and criminal justice system. Your story came up during my research on Marcus's case. My parents gave you my number. They said they thought you might want to know that Marcus started a victim restitution program in prison. He is working with other inmates to understand the impact of their crimes on families. Your parents think his incarceration might have finally forced him to face reality about his behavior. This was news to me, and they wanted me to know this why. They said they are not trying to get you to contact them, but they thought you deserved to know that your decision to leave might have been the catalyst that eventually forced everyone in your family to confront the truth. I processed this information carefully. Jake, can I ask you something? Are my parents doing okay? They are struggling financially because of the restitution payments, but they seem different, more honest about their past mistakes. Your mother volunteers with families of incarcerated individuals now, and your father works with a nonprofit that helps parents learn how to stop enabling addicted children. They are helping other families avoid the mistakes they made. Exactly. Your mother told me that losing you taught them the real cost of putting one child's dysfunction ahead of the entire family's well-being. After we hung up, I called Aunt Vivian to process this new information. I am proud of you for testifying, she told me. And I am proud of you for using that money to help other children. Your grandmother would have loved that. Do you think I should contact them? What does your heart tell you? That I am not ready yet, but maybe someday I will be. Then trust that timeline. You have built a beautiful life, sweetheart. You have a career that matters, friends who love you, and a chosen family that values you. If and when you decide to rebuild a relationship with your parents, it will be from a position of strength, not need. A year later, I sent my parents a brief note letting them know about the scholarship fund and thanking them for returning the money. I told them I was proud to hear they were helping other families learn from their mistakes, and that while I was not ready for regular contact, I appreciated knowing they had grown from their experiences. They sent back a simple card. We are proud of you too. Thank you for breaking the cycle we could not break ourselves. So that is my story of family revenge that turned into family redemption. Sometimes the greatest justice is not punishment, but growth. Sometimes the best revenge is building a life so fulfilling that the people who hurt you realize exactly what they lost. I want to know, have you ever had to choose between toxic family loyalty and your own well-being? Have you seen families break harmful cycles or watched someone's absence finally force others to face the truth? Share your experiences in the comments below because these stories of family justice and growth matter. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family dysfunction and building the life you deserve. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that sometimes leaving is the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for the people who took you for granted. Thank you for listening to my family justice story, and remember, you are never obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm, even if those others are family. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give toxic family dynamics is your absence, because only then can real healing begin. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next story.